Around October, you're going to see me review the first 4 seasons of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. Just the first 4 for a number of reasons you're seeing on screen right now. I'm almost finished with re-watching this run, but before I put ponies in the back of my mind for a while, letting my opinions on the show brew, I have to reveal early what I consider to be the greatest episode of the show. Season 4, Episode 22, Testing 1 2 3, is indicative of everything that makes the show such a joy to watch, and such a useful learning experience regarding emotions and relations. It was penned by Amy Keating Rogers, who's already notable for some of the show's most well-remembered and acclaimed stories. This episode she wrote solely in mind for her youngest child, Soren Rogers. Soren was born in 2003 and at a young age had numerous developmental problems and even suffered from seizures before 12 months. Amy, as far as I'm aware, has successfully raised him up to the age of 15, but not without honouring him in Friendship is Magic in small ways. The Wonderbolt stallion Soren is named after Soren Rogers, and Testing 1 2 3 is about education and the difficulties some people have with learning traditionally, like Soren's had to through his school years. Now that I've made your day a bummer, let's get on with the review. The plot of this particular episode is about cocky tomboy Rainbow Dash in her continued pursuit to join the Pony Air Force, the Wonderbolts, with her next obstacle being an exam on the group's history. Main character and typical bookworm Twilight Sparkle takes her into her library to study, but soon discovers that Rainbow doesn't have the attention span to learn through traditional means, such as highlighting or lecturing. The rest of their circle of friends try out other methods of getting the facts into her head, but they don't work either. Eventually, Twilight discovers that the best method in getting Rainbow to learn is by letting her do her thing, survey everything while she's flying, and absorbing information through those means. It's a good story about education and hidden strengths that anybody of any age can enjoy, but let's break it down piece by piece. The very beginning portion, with Rainbow and Twilight arguing over whether Rainbow should study for the test, establishes a lot of what makes this episode so enjoyable. Namely, the importance of the test, Rainbow being able to join the Wonderbolts Reserve, Twilight's attitude that her friend should embrace her studies instead of shrugging them off, and it also foreshadows Rainbow's talents, with her noting everything she was seeing Twilight do. Another thing I like about this scene is that it's set in the clouds. Twilight had gotten wings at the end of the previous season, and fans at the time were skeptical over whether this was a good idea. Well, at least we got one benefit from them, Twilight being able to fly alongside Rainbow Dash, which keeps them close by at all times here, strengthening their teacher-student relationship. Said relationship stays the central focus into the first act, after the opening credits, as Twilight reorganizes the library to look like a classroom, and Rainbow Dash hardly tries to focus on the lessons. Through highlighting, a lecture, and flashcards, she finds random ways to distract herself, including doodling with the highlighter, rocking her chair back and forth, and hocking spidwads at Twilight. In general, she's known to act childish a lot of the time, but putting her in a classroom setting just accentuates how funny that can be. And since the main character's ages are kept pretty vague, she also stays relatable for child viewers going through the struggle with paying attention on a daily basis, and also adults who reflect back on their childhoods. When the show took off with adults, it made sure to keep them round, and a situation like this balances its audiences perfectly. Twilight eventually gets fed up with Rainbow's apathy towards studying and conducts a pop quiz to prove she isn't ready for the test yet. A couple hunger-induced answers later, and Twilight says something that pierces into my soul. If you had taken the official test today, this is an extremely valid and healthy viewpoint to have towards your studies, and it helps you be prepared. Heck, I remember this line whenever I'm lagging behind in a subject. This also seems like a spiritual callback to Lesson Zero, another classic episode where Twilight had to get an assignment done on time quickly, but in the context of this episode, this new viewpoint results in Rainbow getting so panicked that she actually blames Twilight for not teaching her well enough. Hey, this wouldn't be a modern critique of the education system if it didn't blame the teacher. It also wouldn't be a good one if it didn't note that the teacher was just doing her job, helping her student through the methods she was taught. The argument is pretty mean, but it's necessary on Rainbow's behalf, getting it into Twilight that she can't be taught through traditional means. This leads into the most entertaining portion of Testing 1 2 3, the rest of Rainbow's friends trying to teach her through their own methods. First Fluttershy, being kind enough to organise a stage production about the Wonderbolts' history with all their pets, an adorable effort that goes nowhere because it's hard to understand. Pinkie Pie then puts on a cheesy hip-hop musical number to catch Rainbow's attention, but she can't remember any of the lyrics. The fast tempo of the song and poor sound quality proved to be the obstacles this time. Last of all, Rarity, who takes her through a fashion history exhibit she's created. It was pretty generous of her to put all the clothes together so quickly, but it still doesn't work because Rainbow's overwhelmed. The only friend of hers that isn't able to help out is Applejack, whose style of learning about apples was just through farming them for her whole life. Not a useful method a day before an exam, but it's commendable that the rest were able to put together projects that were fun to watch, in character with their personalities and quirks, and advance the plot. Perhaps a little too commendable, but I'm getting ahead of myself. They all come to a head about which style of learning was best for Rainbow, but this further stresses her out and she gives up hope in doing the exam. This essentially serves as the story's crisis point, with all the boxes ticked and Rainbow Dash worrying she'll never pass and become a Wonderbolt. But a fly with Twilight starts to change that. Twilight points out that just because she has trouble learning doesn't mean she's dumb, which is reassurance that every struggling student needs, but then discovers what exactly Rainbow Dash is smart with: flying. While they're in the sky, she shows off how important peripheral vision is to flying, and she needs to see everything around her, even if she's not paying full attention to it. So, Twilight takes advantage of this strength of hers and stages a history lecture down in Ponyville for Rainbow to observe as she's flying home. It takes a village indeed. This is such a sweet and relieving resolution to the problem, as every pony shouts out tidbits about the history of the Wonderbolts, even combining some of the previous learning methods, and Rainbow Dash feels happy and ready to take the exam. The following day, there's some tension at first, but it's obvious she's going to pass, literally with flying colours. It's interesting to me, however, that Twilight's writing down the moral of the story in the journal. Sure, Rainbow Dash was the one being educated, but this was also a learning experience for Twilight, about how everyone's style of learning is unique. And in an era where we're more accepting of neurodiversity and special education, I think that's going to ring true for a very long time. It helps that this episode is animated really well. There have been some brief animation bumps over the years, and admittedly, this episode doesn't feel like something DHX Media threw money at, but what it does well. The scenes with Twilight and Rainbow flying, simple as they are different from what we'd seen on the show previously. Again, I'm proud they could take advantage of Twilight being able to fly to give this episode a unique feeling from something like Applebuck season. It'd also be fair to point out the brief style shift in Pinky's rap to a 90s music video. It may have been easy to shrink the screen and make more geometric, abstract elements in Flash, but I can still see the effort in it. I don't think many people point out the scene in the boutique though. The lighting and shadow work there make the place feel so ominous. Of course, it's just Rainbow and her friends in old costumes, but it worked in making Rainbow more put off by the exam and conveying that. Of course, it wouldn't be a great My Little Pony episode if it didn't have a multitude of excellent jokes, and despite the serious tone of the episode, it delivers. Rainbow rocking in her chair and Aloysius and Spike joining in and goofing off is very silly and infectious, and it has a good payoff with them distancing themselves from Rainbow after the whoopee horn. There are other smaller highlights like Rainbow Dash's food-based answers for the pop quiz, Pinky's rating system of woohoos, Applejack's spiels on apples to alleviate the tension, and the crown jewel, Big Macintosh summing up the EUP as yup. You could always count on Amy's episodes being filled with classic moments of humour, and while the comedy here is more subdued, it's still present and reliable. It also wouldn't be a great episode if it didn't add to the show's, admittedly dumb, ongoing story, revealing that the EUP and Wonderbolts were formed in response to Luna's banishment. And in terms of present events, Rainbow's one step closer to being in the Wonderbolts. I'm sure she's gonna love it. But indeed, at the heart of it all, it wouldn't be a pony episode if it wasn't easy to nitpick. I have two small problems with the story, namely just how quickly and conveniently all Rainbow's friends knew about Wonderbolt's history before her, and how she doesn't really seem to care about Ponyville's elaborate presentation until it's finished. But I guess the former could be the results of Fluttershy's kindness and willingness to prepare something, Pinky's randomness, and Rarity's fondness for fashion, and I guess Rainbow wasn't exactly processing the presentation directly. I don't know, I can't drive yet, which I suppose this whole peripheral vision thing seems to be a substitute for. So yeah, the plot holes can be justified. That alone made this a new high for the show. And in general, this is the episode I like the most. It had the best moral, the best way of telling it, through both perspectives of a teacher-student relationship, and it's just the one that I have the most fun rewatching. It's got fantastic character interactions, it juggles a lot of unique flavors seamlessly, and it even throws in some world building for those into that sort of thing. For about 3 years, I've considered The Best Night Ever my favorite episode, and while that one's still a fun, nostalgic joyride with a great message, the older I get, the more the themes and values in Testing 1 2 3 keep me coming back to it. It may not be a bona fide fan favorite, the most reliable statistics I can get for the show at large are IMDb unfortunately, and it just grazes the top 50 there, but it is the episode I get the most enjoyment out of and find the most value in. Be sure to comment and give this video 5 woohoos, and I'll see you later.